Is a full choke the same as a long-range choke? Do I need a bismuth choke to shoot boss? Are factory chokes good enough? There are so many questions about choke tubes, and I'm not going to answer all of them today, but I'm going to take a pretty good crack at answering the big stuff. I'm Joel Strickland, and this is part 3 of my shotgunning series right here on Surviving Duck Season. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. So, what choke tube is your go-to, and why do you use it? Let me know down in the comments. I really want to know, so I appreciate you taking the time and giving me your feedback. Now, when I'm producing a video for y'all, I really do my homework. I do tons of research and make sure that the information I give you is accurate and presented in a way that makes sense and is helpful for you. So, when I was researching choke tubes, I looked up what others had done on the subject, looking at a few videos and read a bunch of articles. Certainly, there is some good information out there, but you wouldn't believe how many articles that I found with the title something like, Everything You Need to Know About Choke Tubes. Really? I wish it were that easy to boil down choke tubes into 300 words or less. The articles were actually from well-known publications, and several of these articles look like they were written by someone who didn't shoot or hunt very much. Now today we are talking about choke tubes, and no, it's not everything you need to know, and it's not all there is to know on choke tubes, but this is going to give you a good understanding and help set the stage for further videos in my shotgun series. So, these are choke tubes, and I'm guessing that you probably already have a basic understanding of what they're supposed to do. They change the constriction of your shot pattern. In general, a more open choke produces a wider pattern, while a tighter choke makes a smaller pattern. Cylinder being no choke tube constriction, meaning the widest, and tighter chokes being like a full or an extra full or maybe even a turkey choke. Now, most new shotguns that you buy today come with some factory chokes, normally at least 3, like full, modified, and improved cylinder. Now, the majority of factory choke tubes have notches cut into the rim like this. That's so it will help you know the difference. 1 notch is for full, 2 notches is improved modified, 3 is modified for improved, 5 for cylinder. So, how do you know which one to shoot? Well, there's some basic guidelines that have been promoted for 30 plus years. They're not entirely wrong, but only look at it as a starting point. I'm going to share it with you, but please don't take this as the end-all be-all. There's a whole lot more to it than this. So, depending on the distance that you're planning to shoot a duck or a goose, will change which tube you want to start with. In general, 20 yards and under, go with an improved cylinder. 20 to 40 yards, modified. 40 plus, a full. While we're talking about full chokes, let me say this. Full chokes and extended range chokes, a lot of them are not approved for shooting steel shot through. So make sure you check. Sometimes they'll have it written on the choke if it's a steel choke. And then also when you buy the choke off the rack, they'll say on the packaging if it's approved for steel shot or not. That's really important on the tighter constricted chokes because a lot of them you're not supposed to shoot steel shot through. And some of them even will let you shoot smaller steel shot, but not like maybe BBs and some of the larger size shots. So just make sure you check on that. Then you need to shoot your ammo and choke tube to see what it looks like on paper. See what the pattern looks like. See if it looks decent at the yardage that you're planning to shoot while you're hunting. I'm not necessarily talking about full-on patterning your gun, not yet. This is just the very basics to get you started on the right track shooting paper. Get a roll of paper from Hobby Lobby or wherever, cut 40 or 48 inches, get a big square, and then draw a 30-inch circle on it. Put a dot in the middle and shoot it at the distance you want to hunt. Again, this is not really patterning your gun per se, it's just for the guy or gal who's never done this before. You've got a box of steel shot or whatever, and you aren't sure what tube to start with. It takes you 15 minutes. Now, we're not going to get into counting pellets or doing percentages or any of that. We're just interested in the basic look of the pattern on paper. And here's something else. This is the stuff that really just blows my mind. But just because your choke says it's a modified or a full doesn't mean that's what it really is. I'm not making this up. You need to look at it on paper, and that's the only way you can know what it is. It's important to know if you're going to buy an aftermarket choke tube, make sure you look on the package to see if it'll fit your gun. I shoot a Winchester SX4, so it uses a Browning Infector Plus, which you see that written right there. All choke tube companies will have a fitment guide on their website or whatever, so you know whatever type of gun you shoot, you need to make sure that you get the choke tube that goes specifically for your gun. What about aftermarket choke tubes? That's why y'all are here, I know. It's one of the biggest questions. Which one is the best? Or are aftermarket chokes better than factory chokes? In the past year, I've shot 27 different choke tubes from 8 different companies, the biggest names in chokes. And I've got lots of data. Throughout this series, I'll be sharing it with you. Now, like I've done in my first 2 episodes of this series, let's take a look back in history. The year 1978, in the South American nation of Guyana, cult leader Jim Jones had brainwashed hundreds of his followers to drink a fruit punch laced with cyanide. He convinced them of an alternate reality, and so they bought into this twisted tangle of delusional thinking and committed suicide. It's known as the Jonestown Massacre. What would cause people to follow him so blindly, to take everything he said as gospel truth, without researching anything for themselves? It was a fatal mistake. Now stay with me, it'll make sense in a minute. Many of you know when it's duck season in Arkansas, I'm a duck hunting guide. And this past season, I asked everyone who sat in my blind what choke and ammo they were shooting. I found a common scenario that happened with nearly every group of hunters. It was normally a 50-50 split with guys who shot an aftermarket versus a factory choke. There was usually one guy in every group who was the company spokesperson for his brand of choke, reciting the marketing bullet points. You'd swear he created the tube himself. If someone asked him a question, he'd tell you with authority the research behind it and why it's the best, often sharing why you'd be a fool to use anything else. Guess which choke brand I'm talking about? Well, before I tell you, I'm going to predict right now that it's already been done in the comments of this video. Now don't go edit your comment, just let it go. Some of you are going to be surprised though that the name brand of the company I'm talking about is Jebs, Kicks, Pattern Master, Carlson's, Briley, Rob Roberts, you get the idea. So how is it possible that each guy could be totally convinced that his tube is the best and all others are complete garbage? So I asked the guys if they'd ever compared their chokes with others, how they knew theirs were the best. Usually it got responses like, well, it just smashes the ducks. I've never seen anything like it. I asked every single person who sat in my blind if they'd patterned their gun, ammo, and choke tube that they were using that day. And you know how many actually said yes? 2. Yep, 2, all duck season, out of like 100 and something guys. Have you ever shot it at paper one time? Nope. A few of them did say that they patterned it a few years ago, but not with the ammo they were using that day. How can they know that theirs is the best if they hadn't compared it with others? Even what's more curious to me is how that all major brands have convinced somebody that theirs is the best and all others are inferior. It's both funny and sad that so many people have drank the Kool-Aid. As I began working on the research for this series, I looked at the different choke tube companies and saw how many options they all had. It can be really confusing. I mean, how are you supposed to know which one to buy? Well, most of the companies have a basic full, modified and improved, and all the other ones. But then they also have these specialty chokes. For example, many companies have a specific tube for bismuth, tubes specifically for like blindside ammo, and for black cloud ammo. There's tubes that are smooth, some are ported, and even some that have a wad stripper. Several months ago, I had the opportunity to speak with several of the pioneers in choke tube technology. I asked them lots of questions, learning as much as I could about chokes. Scott Carlson of Carlson's Chokes has been making choke tubes for over 30 years. I spoke with him at length by phone, and he helped me with a lot of information from all of his years of experience. One question I asked him was, how does a guy navigate all the different options of choke tubes, specifically for waterfowl hunting? Do I really need a choke for every type of ammo that I could potentially shoot? So he explained to me that the different tubes, like his Bone Buster Bismuth choke or Black Cloud choke, are all about marketing. Well, when he said that, I thought, wow, I can't believe you just told me that. But then he went on to say, that's not a bad thing. We're just trying to help guys find the right choke tube for what they're shooting. Well, sure, we have our standard modified and improved cylinder for guys who know what they need, but there are so many guys that have absolutely no idea what to get. Often many of their chokes may work for multiple ammo, but it makes it easy for a guy to find the right choke the way that they've named them. I've discovered this to be common practice amongst most of the choke tube industry, especially for waterfowl. Unfortunately, it seems to be that there's a lack of interest in the majority of waterfowl hunters to educate themselves in shotgunning. There, I said it. Basically, the choke tube industry is dumbing it down to help guys find the right product. Shame on us. So much of hunting has been passed on as tradition. That includes shotguns, ammo, and choke tubes. So many guys are doing things not because it's the best way, but because that's what their daddy did, and that's what his daddy did. Often, nobody really even knows why. We need mentors teaching people the way and teaching them why. And we all need to be students of our passion. We owe it to the ducks and geese that we hunt and to future generations. Okay, you're here watching this video, so you're definitely in the right place right now. So when we look at waterfowl chokes, we see many companies using terms like long range, mid-range, decoy, passing, timber. And when we see that, we instantly understand the range that we're supposed to use these chokes. But really, aren't they all just the same? Meaning a full the same as a long range, the same as a passing choke? You'd think so, but you can't assume that, because I can tell you right now, you'd be disappointed. But my intention on this series is to help you narrow it down and cut through all the marketing baloney. Don't drink the Kool-Aid, and make sure you watch all the testing that I've done throughout the rest of this series. Okay, so after you decide on a choke or two, then look at it on paper. Your next step is to get it all dialed in by shooting multiple rounds and changing your tubes and ammo to pick out what the best combination is for you. But that's not this video. That's the next video. Make sure you watch it. God bless you. I'm Joel Strickland, and I'll see you there.